everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a reading vlog where I get in the spooky mood and read some horror books. I'm really feeling the colder weather. I'm just excited to read some more spooky books, spend a lot more time inside reading. Today it's really grey, it's rainy, and I've got the full day to myself. So I'm going to start reading a few books. I have picked out which books I'm going to read. It is subject to change as usual, but this is what we're working with at the minute. I got these two books for my birthday, which was on the 12th of September. I got this one off my sister and her boyfriend, which is Shiver by Junji Ito. This is a horror manga. I have read Uzumaki at a similar time last year and I really loved that. So bless them, they bought me this and I can't wait to give it a go. The next book that I have here is one that my friend Lydia bought me, and this is Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. I think this is a fairly new book by her. I've previously read The Last House on Needless Street and I gave that 5 stars. So this one is definitely on the immediate TBR. And I also want to read, it's one that I've had on my Kindle for a really long time, and it's called Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. I've seen it described as The Shining meets Titanic, and I think the horror with that is that there's some ghostly apparitions, and I've seen that it really creeped a lot of people out. So I think I'm going to start with that one because I'm in the mood for a really creepy, scary book, and then we will move on to these two afterwards. So yeah, I've literally got the whole day to myself today. I'm going to start reading Dead Silence first on my Kindle and I will check in with you in a little bit. Hi everyone, so it's now been a few hours. I've literally just been reading this book and alternating between that and my phone. I have been reading this book for quite a while, but I've only got to almost 20% I think, but I'm really enjoying it so far. Basically this book is set in space, which I didn't realise. I thought it was going to be set in like the ocean, but no, it's actually set in space and we're following this main character called Claire. At the minute there's 2 timelines, so we're following her in the present day as she's being kind of interrogated for this incident that's happened where she is the lone survivor of her crew on this spaceship. And then we're seeing flashbacks, which are the main parts of the book, where Claire is the team leader of a crew of 5, including her, and they are on their final voyage in this spaceship where they maintain comms, like communication satellites or something. And whilst they're on this trip, they come across a distress signal. So Claire decides to check it out and they basically find this mysterious ship that has been missing for 20 years and it's called the Aurora, and it's basically modelled to look, I'm guessing, a lot like the Titanic, and it's basically meant to replicate a luxury cruise liner on Earth, and it was doing a big tour of like the solar system and it was on this year-long trip. As it was 6 months into its trip, it disappeared and this crew have now just found it, and they are basically going to say, this is our ship now, everything that's on it we own and we can sell. So I'm finding it really interesting so far. I do really enjoy a space story actually. My plan is to basically read as much of this as I can today, which probably won't be very much, to be fair, saying that I've only got to 20% after about 2 or so hours. I'm just running a bath, which is probably what you can hear in the background, so I think my plan is I'm going to read some of this in the bath. I'm going to get some sushi because I've been craving that for ages. But yeah, I'm going to read some more of this. It's kind of reminding me of a Doctor Who episode. There is one where Titanic's in space, isn't there? Things are going to start getting creepy, I think, because everyone's probably going to be dead on this ship. So whether they come across some long lost survivors or they're going to be ghosts or there's something else going on. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep reading and I will let you know when I get a little bit further on into the book and let you know if it is creeping me out as much as I want it to. Good morning everyone, it is now the next day and I just wanted to give you a little reading update. So I'm now about 60% of the way through Dead Silence. I'm still really liking it, I'm finding it pretty creepy. I was reading it in bed last night and some of the scenes were like freaking me out a little bit. I am finding it slightly slower paced than I was expecting it to, but I don't actually mind that. It's reminding me a little bit of The Last Passenger by Will Dean, which I read earlier this summer, because it has that same feel where we're exploring this ship. It's not fully action packed. It's a lot about survival and searching for items that might help them and things like that, which I tend to quite enjoy. My main issue with this book at the minute is that it has kind of a heavy focus on this romance between two characters, which I'm not super bothered about. I'm not really interested in that, and it's taking up most of the character development, I would say, rather than about them as individuals. I don't know. I do feel like our main character is pretty well fleshed out, but the other members of the crew I'm not totally interested in, especially the one with the romance involved. I'm just not bothered. I just don't care about that. So anyway, I'm now playing Disney Dreamlight Valley because I'm back in that phase, and then I will finish this book later on today and I will let you know what I think when I finish it. Hi guys, so it's now a few hours later and I'm almost finished with this book. I'm at 90%, but since I last updated you, I've played a little bit of Disney, I've tidied up the kitchen, done some washing, made my tea, I had some spaghetti carbonara which was delish, and I'm now finishing this book and I'm feeling like it's dragging a little bit now. I'm at 90% and my Kindle says there's still 40 minutes left in this book, and I just don't feel like it needs that. I feel like we're coming so close to the end. I just don't understand why it's so long. I need to see how many pages this book actually is. I will check that when I finish it. I'm also struggling to picture the visuals now. As in, I'm struggling to picture some of the scenes in my head and some of the logistics of things. Like there's a bit where a character's being chased by somebody, and it mentioned that she was limping as she was being chased, and she's managed to just lose this person who's chasing her really quickly, and I just don't get what this person is doing to have not been able to chase her. And we've now had the explanation as to what is actually going on with the Aurora, and it is quite an interesting explanation, but again, some of the logistics here, I'm just not getting it. I'm just not understanding. I guess we'll just see how it's going to end. I don't think anything else is going to happen really. I'm going to run a bath because I'm cold. I will then finish this book probably in the bath as well and let you know my final thoughts. I'm not as in love with it as I was at the start, but I'm not disliking it. I'm just kind of waiting for it to be wrapped up now. Hi everyone, so I've just had my bath. I'm now in my pyjamas and I'm just making some pasta for tomorrow's dinner. I finished Dead Silence in the bath and I'm thinking I might give it like a 3.5 star rating. I wish it had been a little bit creepier. There were some creepy bits, but nothing too intense for me. There was some body horror, but again, not like super shocking or anything. It did lean quite heavily on romance. Well, I wouldn't say heavily, but it was definitely a major plot point, which I just wasn't really interested in. I did quite like how it ended though. It just kind of dragged a little bit, and although the whole kind of idea behind what was going on was interesting, it wasn't the scariest thing in the world to me, and that's what I kind of wanted. And I also struggled with the writing sometimes. I feel like the love interest, basically all he said was, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" Like constantly. And he was a bit wet, to be honest. And there were quite a lot of like similes, metaphors that were a little bit dramatic. Like, you know when someone writes that somebody said something to you and it feels like a punch to the gut, but it took it like a little bit further, like it was, the hole went right through her body and all this, and I just think like, I don't think it warranted that reaction. I don't think what he said deserved that reaction. So yeah, there was some minor issues with it which started to grate on me a little bit as we were getting to the end. I think what kept me really enjoying it at the start was the intrigue behind what was happening, and then once that kind of came, I feel like it should have wrapped up a little bit quicker than it did. So anyway, I'm gonna go get my next book. So I'm gonna start reading Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward next. I think it's about 9 o'clock, so I'm probably gonna get into bed, read some of this. I don't actually know what this one is about, but I might just not look and just see where it takes me. I feel like this is probably going to be kind of confusing anyway, and I think this is one of those books where you don't really know what's happening until all of a sudden you do, and that's what it was like with The Last House on Needle Street, and I loved it. So yeah, gonna give this one a go next. Hi guys, so it's now a few days later. I've not really been reading much, which is why I've not been updating you, but I did start reading Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. I'm not very far into it. I'm only up to page 58. I'm finding it a bit odd so far. It's not what I expected really. The first 50 pages were just about this guy Wilder and his summer at this bay when he's 16 and the two people that he meets and how they become friends. And that was kind of it. It was more like coming of age. There was a tiny hint of maybe some horror that's to come. If that's going to be just like an introduction, then I feel like it could have been a little bit shorter, because we got a very small chapter after that from a different perspective, and now we're back with Wilder, I think. But yeah, I'm just not very interested in it at the minute. I'm finding it kind of difficult to read big chunks of it, but that might also be because I've been working a lot. So by the time I've started reading, I'm really tired, but I'm just not really feeling it at the minute. Part of me is wanting to put it to the side for a bit and pick it up later, but I think if I do that, I never will. So I'm gonna keep going, see if the horror actually appears, and let you know, because I've heard that this book is kind of confusing, and I saw one review describe it as like an Inception type thing, but for now, yeah, we've literally just had 50 pages of coming of age story, so I'm a bit confused. I feel like I'm reading a different book. So I will probably speak to you in a few days when I get a little bit further on, and yeah, hopefully I've changed my mind, hopefully I'm enjoying it a little bit more. Hi guys, so it's now a few days later again. Sorry about the weird lighting. I can't seem to find anywhere in my house that is light enough at the minute because it's getting dark so quickly outside. It's not even 7 o'clock yet and it is almost totally dark. Anyway, I wanted to give you an update because I finished reading Looking Glass Sound last night, and I've actually given this book 5 stars. What a plot twist, because I did not expect that. So basically I picked this back up yesterday morning and I read the entire thing in one day almost, minus those like 50 pages that I read at the start. This book is so clever, so layered, and has so much to it. It's going to be really hard for me to explain why without giving away any spoilers, but I got to about the halfway point and I was a bit confused because I went back and read the blurb, which is on the inside of this cover, and all we'd got at the halfway point was the blurb basically, and I was just a bit confused, although I did find myself really rooting for our main character Wilder at this point. This isn't a spoiler because the blurb does mention it, however I would go into it without knowing anything if possible, but I will say it anyway just for those of you who've already read the blurb. Wilder basically writes a memoir, which is part of this book that you're reading, about this summer which ends really badly for him, and when he goes to college he meets this guy who basically steals his idea for his memoir and turns it into a fiction book. I feel like I'm seeing this theme quite a lot in books at the minute, like in Penance and also Yellowface, about who kind of owns the right to tell certain stories. Is it ethically and morally right to use other people's traumas for entertainment? And this book touches on that because this guy basically takes Wilder's story, and I felt so bad for Wilder, I was so angry. And it's a bit of a strange book because it doesn't feel like much is happening even though it is, but then I feel like when I got to the end and everything just clicked into place perfectly, and you understand what's happening, it was just a really good reading experience. And I should have expected that because this author did write The Last House on Needler Street, and I had the exact same feeling with that. It wasn't until I got to the end and everything kind of came together. I remember being really confused when I first read that, and it was only when I realised how clever the book was that I fully appreciated it, and it's the same with this. There's some chapters that don't have a heading, they just have brackets, and then they've got like a few words on. For the whole time that you're reading, you don't really know what they mean. They are kind of mentioned throughout, but you don't really get it, and then it's only when you get to the end and you understand them. And I went back and read them all after I finished it, and I felt so creeped out. The last page literally gave me chills, and I just really enjoyed it. I'd love to know how she writes her books because I feel like her ideas would be really difficult to write down, so I really appreciate her writing and how she manages to pull everything together. There was also a chapter somewhere in the middle that you don't really understand at the time, but when I read it again it made complete sense. There were loads of different little twists at the end which kind of flipped everything on its head, and that is my favourite thing about reading books, is when I've been like fully tricked by an author in a good way. And it gave me a similar feeling to how I felt when I read Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, which was my favourite book of maybe last year, the year before. Just how creeped out I felt. So yeah, the horror really did come through after a while. When it gets to page 80, that's when the real horror starts. The way that it all wrapped up was just really impressive. And yeah, I'm giving it 5 stars for now because when I finished it I was like, how can I not? But I am going to sit and think on it because I told my boyfriend and he was like, 5 stars, but you really didn't like it at the start. And yes, he was correct. So I'm going to see how I feel. Maybe it'll be like a 4.5, but at the minute I'm going to go with a 5 because I'm just seriously like blown away with this book. I think it's really impressive, really clever. It was definitely worth getting to the end, and I would recommend it if you like a weird kind of slow burn which feels kind of literary at times. And even now I'm thinking about little things that happened which I was a bit confused about at the time, and it all makes sense now. So she's just such an impressive author, and I think I might go back and read Sundial, which I did have on my TBR at one point and then I removed it because I read that it has really
graphic animal cruelty in it, and I really don't like that in books. But if you've read Sundial, let me know, because yeah, her other two books I really loved, and I think I should probably go back and read it now. But I'm now going to go and make a steak tea. I'm going to have a cosy night, and then I'm not sure I'm in the mood for shiver right now. I feel like it's not Halloween enough, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm picking up next, but I will show you when I pick it up. I might read something tonight, but we have been rewatching Doctor Who basically for the whole year, and we're finally up to the Matt Smith and Clara era. We were going to try and watch basically the entirety of like the new generation Doctor Who before the David Tennant episodes came out, but that is not going to happen anymore. We've still got like 2 whole Doctors to watch, but we're going to try and get as far as we can, and yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to go. I will speak to you when I next pick up another book. Hi everyone, so it's now the next morning. I've not long ago woken up, so I still look a bit puffy and half asleep, but I thought I would just show you the book that I started reading last night when I was in bed. I was inspired to pick up a book from Kindle Unlimited because I started a subscription a few months ago and I was getting it for free, and then I noticed that it came out of my bank this month and it's like £9 a month or something, and I've only read one book on Kindle Unlimited since I got it, so I wanted to read something that I've managed to find on there that I've not been able to find anywhere else. So the book that I decided to go for was Into the Forest and All the Way Through by Cynthia Palaio, and this is a poetry collection, which is not something that I usually read, but I do like to give them a go every so often, and this one is mainly inspired by missing or murdered women in America. So this collection was published in 2020 and it's got really good reviews on Goodreads, but I thought it was interesting that it came out in 2020 because that was when I was fully in my like true crime, watching documentaries, listening to podcasts constantly. I wasn't really aware of the implications of, you know, just binging true crime, and I think that has become much more of a talking point in the last maybe year or two, ever since I read Notes on an Execution by Danya Kakafka, I think, and then recently with Penance. I feel like a lot of books are bringing in commentary and kind of criticising the true crime industry, which I have found really interesting as a topic, and I think that this book is gonna kind of do that as well. So it's bringing more attention to the victims of these kinds of crimes or people that go missing, but doing it in a way that is sensitive to families and things like that. So I've only read 10% of this book so far, but I'm enjoying it. I have highlighted some of the lines so far, and I don't really read poetry at all, so I started reading them and I found myself like speed reading through them because that's how I would read a book. But I'm trying to deliberately take it slow, kind of read them aloud to myself in my head to get like the full impact of it. And some of the poems are directly inspired by specific cases, and then she includes the basic details of the real case at the end of the poem. I'm going to read some of it now because I don't think it'll take me very long. I think it's showing that I've got 2 hours left in this book. I've pretty much got a full day. I am going out for tea later on, but it's my day off, so I should be able to get through this if I want to. But yeah, I will let you know when I'm a little bit further in. At the minute, I'm enjoying it. I feel like it's done in a pretty respectful way. I will let you know if that changes. Hi everyone, so it's now a few hours later again. So I've just got ready because I'm going out for tea with my old work friends. So I thought I would give you a little reading update. So I'm now about 40% of the way through Into the Forest and All the Way Through. I can't exactly remember what I talked about this morning, but I do have a few thoughts that I just want to share. The first thing is that I do think that this book is being dealt with in a respectful and sensitive way. You can tell that this author has done her research. She's very aware that in America there's a disproportionate amount of Black, Hispanic, Native American people, especially women, who have gone missing, and their cases are often disregarded, not looked into very much. So I think she's trying to highlight those cases in this book. There's quite a lot that I've never heard of. I think the ones that I have heard of have all been white women, so I thought that was kind of interesting. I think I mentioned that she basically writes the poem and then she puts some basic details about the real life crime that inspired the poem at the end. So I have been looking for some extra information on a few of them. One thing that I have noticed though is that some of them feel a little bit like a rewording of the Wikipedia summaries, or like a very basic summary of the case. So I feel like with those ones I'm not really learning a ton about what she's trying to say, other than these are the basic details that I've found online with some very brief research, and here it is in a poem. I'm not saying that that is what she did, but that's what some of them read like once I'm doing some further research on them. The other thing is that because a lot of these poems are very short, they're probably 1 or 2 pages on my Kindle, it kind of feels like exactly what I'm trying to avoid with true crime. So a lot of true crime is documentary series or podcast episodes, and I feel like you could easily watch or listen to multiple cases in one go. But I feel like when you're consuming that much of it, it just waters everything down. And I feel like reading this poetry collection all in one go is exactly that. I'm just flicking between loads of different women's stories, not really taking on board what I think this author's trying to say. So I have taken a little break earlier today. I got to about, I think I took a break at like 25%, and then I read a little bit more and I'm taking a break now. But I do think that because there's so many poems that I've read so far, it's showing just how many missing women and murdered women there are in America. There was one, it was the first one where she's talking about a Jane Doe case, and that one just really hit me because they describe this woman, what she was wearing, and she's wearing quite distinctive clothes. She's got this very distinct necklace on, and it just made me really sad to think about how even though she's been found, she's not been identified. She's been buried in a pauper's grave which is labelled Jane Doe. She might have family, friends out there who don't know where she is, and that just made me really sad. The whole thing is making me really sad, to be fair. I feel like Jane Doe cases don't get as much attention because they've not got that name behind it. A lot of the time they're completely unresolved. So I'm really glad that she's included those stories in here as well. So I am really enjoying this collection so far. It's making me think a lot, both positive and negative things about it. So yeah, I'll probably read a little bit more of it later and I will let you know when I finish it. And then depending on how long this vlog is, I will probably start The Country Will Bring Us No Peace by Mathieu Simard. I don't know how you pronounce that first name, but this is a French book which has been translated by Pablo Strauss. It seems very short, so I'll hopefully try and squeeze this in at the end as well. But yeah, I'm gonna go and have my tea. I think I'm gonna have a carvery because it's very grey outside and I'm in my full autumn gear, and I will let you know when I finish my book. Hi everyone, so it's now like a week later, I think. After the clip that you last saw me in, I got really ill. I mean, I say really ill, I had a bad cold. And then since then, I've kind of been psyching myself up to finish this vlog. I started uploading some of the footage and something went wrong with it, so it was putting this really grainy filter over everything and I thought I was gonna have to scrap the whole thing. So yeah, it's now like the 19th of October and I need to finish this vlog up. So basically, I finished Into the Forest and all the way through, and I'm giving it a 3-star, which I am kind of disappointed with because I thought it would be more of a 5. Basically, as I was getting to the end, I thought it felt a little bit samey, and I don't know if it's just because I'm not a poetry reader. I just don't understand what good poetry is. Some of the way that the lines were broken up didn't really make sense to me and made it sound kind of disjointed, but I guess is that the point of poetry? I don't know. As I've already mentioned, some of them were kind of short and kind of just recited the case summary. This poet used double entendre, is it called, quite a lot, where they'll use the same word and have 2 different meanings for it, and I started noticing that more and more as we got through, and it kind of lost its clever impact for me, because although it did make me think quite a lot initially, once I got to the end I didn't feel much for it anymore and I just kind of wanted it to end. There were some definite standouts. I will probably do a more detailed Goodreads review with some of my favourites, so I will post that in the description box when I do that. I also read, while we're here, I'll just talk about it briefly. I also read The Country Will Bring Us No Peace by Mathieu Simard. I think I mentioned in my last clip that I would consider reading this, and I did read it, but I just didn't vlog anything. But I'm giving this one 4 stars. So basically this is about a couple who are trying to have a baby, and they move away from the city to this very small town which is surrounded by a forest, and it's got this eerie, weird feeling to it. When it got to like the halfway point, I think, this book really surprised me because it starts talking about something which I wasn't expecting and it made me really sad. Some of the writing around that was really, really good. And then I really loved the ending of this book as well. I thought it was really well done. My only kind of issue, is that I wanted this book to be a little bit more creepy, a bit more scary, but it is definitely more quiet, eerie vibes than it is terrifying. It was 125 pages. I thought it was a good length. I probably could have read more on it, to be fair, but yeah, 4-star for this. And I'm now going to start filming another horror reading vlog and hopefully the next one will be a little bit more successful because I feel like this one has just been a shambles. But I feel like I say that every time I vlog because it always ends up going not how I expect it to. But yeah, thank you for watching this video if you've made it this far. Give it a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!